Hello everyone, my name is Timothy Lee Grant and welcome back to another engineering investigation video. So in these video series what we do is I try to go and search for different concepts in engineering that I don't quite understand right now, and we just do an exploration of all of these different concepts. So it's more of a free floating kind of video where we're just going and trying to understand and investigate all of these different topics within engineering and become a better engineer. So today what we are doing is, let me make myself a little bit smaller. So we are going in and trying to understand how does C# actually interact with SQLite. So SQLite is developed, actually, well, I think Microsoft develops obviously C#, and then I'm not sure who the publishers of SQLite is. It actually might not be Microsoft, but we're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do these actually interact? So actually, let me move myself over here so that I'm able to get these guys. So we are investigating this right here, and in the last video, we were looking through this create command and how we are able to get this connection, open the connection, right? Get the connection, open the connection, create the command, and now what I want to figure out is, all right, well, we have this command string that we are creating. How do you actually input values? Because I'm seeing that we have this $sign right there, but when we were looking in the source code, we were seeing that actually it was basing things off of a question mark. So how do you actually dynamically put values into this string such that you're able to correctly put in the values that you're hoping for? So obviously we can just look at it kind of right here and see, okay, well, just from context, you can kind of understand this command.parameters, okay, and then add with value, and then we're adding this ID value, which is a variable. I don't know exactly where it's initialized. I'm not seeing it initialized, but it's obvious from the context that it is a variable. And then we put so probably this method right here will take in this variable, and it's a dictionary under the hood, and it associates the string ID to the value which is stored in this variable. I think that's how it's doing it, but I'm not seeing what I want to do is kind of go over, like, okay, well, how do you build this string? How do you input the values? And then that's kind of what I want to get into in this video. So let's look at that, and let's see. So this is for creating the command right here. So we do the create command here, but now I want to look at this like command text and maybe possibly execute reader or execute or add with value. So one of these things. So let me actually see add with value. And let's come in here, let's command F, paste that in there, and let's see where we locate it. Okay, so add with value. Are we seeing it? I'm not seeing it. Add with value. Does it say none? Oh, none found. Okay. Well, there's that, I guess. Maybe parameters. Oh, I think I know what's going on. So I don't think we're going to be able to see it. Wow. Okay. Helicopter. So I don't think we are going to be able to see it, because if you remember when we declared this new connection, there was the statement in here that was new connection, and we didn't actually have access to that because it was coming from somewhere else. So we actually do not have kind of insight into this line right there, which is unfortunate. All right, so let me change up my strategy then. So we're setting this command text. Let's try to look at that. So let's go command text. Okay. And SQL here, command text. Okay. Same thing, same thing. Okay, okay. ToString. Okay. What is going on here? Let's see if this is important. Public override ToString parts. Command text. Okay. So I think what's going on in here is we are actually looking for, so we're taking this command text, which is going to be the, it's going to be this part, and I think what we're doing is actually similar to, might be somewhat, what actually are we doing? I think we're doing this, and then we are trying to actually input or associate the values. String.format 0, index 0 with index 1, I minus 1, b value. And we are doing this on okay. Var parts is a new string. Maybe I'm confused because I don't quite see where we're even calling this, but we have this ToString. Bind all, bind parameters. Okay. I'm kind of running into a wall right now. Let's look at this because I'm not sure exactly what's going on with this one. This one is our Hello World example. So this is given by, I believe it's Microsoft. Is it? Docs sample. Wait, who's the publisher of this? I think we got it straight off the Microsoft website. Yeah, it's right here. So it's more or less, it is the official documentation from Microsoft on how to do SQLite. So it's the Hello World example from Microsoft. So let me come static. Okay. So we create this new connection. We open the connection, create the command, and now we are coming here to command text. So this is kind of what we want to look at. So it looks like we're doing two separate SQL commands. The first one is creating the table. The second one is inserting. So let's first, I guess, investigate this one, these texts or commands, and then from that we might be able to unravel how the connections are actually working. So just a refresher of how SQL works. You have your database, and within your database you have multiple different tables, or one, but you can have multiple tables within your database, and each table is going to have rows and columns. So our database here is called hello.db, okay? And now what we're doing is we are doing a command to this database and saying, hey, I want you to create a table called user, okay? And now we are going to this table, this user table, is going to have two fields, two columns, columns. One of which is ID, the other one is name. ID is going to be an integer. It is not allowed to be null, so you can't have just not put an ID. There has to be an ID field. It is the primary key, meaning this is how you are going to identify each row in your table. And then auto increment just means when you add a new row, the ID just increases by 1. So it's automatically creating that value right there. The name is going to be of type text, and we're also not allowing it to be none. Okay, so second one that we're doing is we're inserting into user. So we're inserting rows into this table. Okay, so values 1. Now that's the ID. Okay, Bryce, 2, Alexander, 3, Nate. Okay, so insert into users values. Is this auto? Does it associate just the first one is ID? Okay, so that is going to be one of the questions that we ask. So for this, when we do, I'm going to copy and paste this. Is it just based on order, which allows the association of 1 with ID and Bryce with name? Or do we need to explicitly associate the two in some way? Okay. All right, so we come here. So for the SQL insert statement, let's see how that works. The database looks at the table definitions. Yep. The table has 2 columns, ID and name. Since you didn't specify column names in the insert statement, SQL assumes you are providing values for all columns in the exact order that they do. So how would we, that's the next follow-up question, would be how would we, if I did want to provide values for all columns, how would we do that? So explicit versus implicit. Okay, well, it's probably going to tell us. So we can do either insert into user and then specify ID name, or we can do just insert into user values. Okay, so we have the option. Okay, so I think that this might actually be where some of my misunderstanding is coming from when I am seeing these SQL, C#, commands. Okay, so I need to keep in my mind this framework because we're going to be using this in the... Oh, hold on. Susie is calling me. Hold up. Okay, and we are back. So let me come and minimize myself a little bit. Oops. There we go. All right, so what we were doing is we were trying to keep in our mind this this way of doing the SQL insertions. So what we saw was we actually can do this where we leave out an argument here, which is found right here. So the structure is parentheses and then the explicit name, and this name is found right here. So ID and name. So it's matched. Those two strings are matched, and you're explicitly telling SQL, hey, first one, I'm going to be giving you two parameters, okay? And in this tuple, it's not Python, but you get what I mean. In this tuple, the first one is going to be ID. Second one is going to be name. And if we have a third one, we could just expand that out. So this is how that's working. Now, what I was seeing is we have these. So now, keeping that in mind, I'm seeing this here. Insert into users name and then $name. Now it's starting to make a little bit more sense to me. I'm like, okay, now I see this is this one is I'm just telling SQL, hey, SQL, I'm going to be passing you a parameter. This parameter is name. And I think the reason that we need to do it here is because look at this. We're only passing in one parameter. And why would that be? Because ID is going to be auto incrementing. So we should be able to insert, and we don't need to mess around with saying for to try to remember, well, what was our last one? We don't need to do that. But we do need to specify, hey, I'm passing you the name right here because we're not doing ID first, name second, just as it's created in the table. So now we need to, because we're only specifying part of the parameters. Okay. Starting to make more sense. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now what do? Command parameters, add value, $name is name. So now I think what this is doing is $name is associating with this $name. So I am passing in an actual parameter because look at this. This is just a string. There's no parameter in here. But then when we do add value, then we put this name variable in there. Okay. Once again, it's starting to make more sense. Okay. So now what do I want to do? I mean, now it's starting to make sense. And then execute non-query. So I want to know what is this execute non-query, and what would be just an execute or execute query? Like, why are we doing non-query? So let me come in here and say non-query. Okay. 5 matches is, what's this even in? Insert. Okay, so this is probably the insert blank into, let me go back. What was the actual? Insert into. Okay, that's the phraseology. Insert into table, and then you give the parameters that you're about to give, and then you give the values that you want to insert. Okay. I think that's what we're doing here. And then we take in these. We take in an object, string extras. This is a precompiler directive, so if not greater than 8, this doesn't get compiled. So if okay, whatever. And then type object. Okay. If object is null or object type is null, then we just return 0. Var map, get mapping. Okay. Replacing question mark. This is actually a interesting one because columns is replacing, var replacing. Okay. Map dot insert or replace columns inheriting from map insert columns. I don't understand what's going on here. So I'm gonna oh, well, let's look at this and then let's paste this one in. Okay. So special note on auto incrementing. Since ID is defined as integer primary key auto increment, normally you don't need to insert ID manually. It will generate it for you. And that would make sense because that would be quite annoying to try to go and remember what was the last ID that I just put in there. Well, you don't want to remember that. You want to just be able to put it in. So that's good. And look, they're using that name syntax as well because I believe you would have to. Okay, so let's just press enter. While it's doing its thinking, cup of coffee. Okay. So, great question. Wait, is that the one that I already asked? Here, okay. String.compare. Okay. Extra or replace, which is a string comparison, original ignore case equals to 0. So purpose the string variable extra with the literal or replace. Okay, string comparison makes the comparison case sensitive, so or replace will match. Okay, so so what we're trying to do is just compare, and we don't want to, it's kind of like in Python where you have a string and then you just say to upper and then compare them to the uppercase variation. So it's a way of ignoring cases is what I'm getting out of here. If the strings are equal, okay, fine. Vars column, okay, so this is a ternary operator. Okay, so it's like the C version. So vars equals replacing. If that's true, do this. Otherwise, do this? Or is it just if replacing is true? So, okay, yeah. So if replacing is true, then we do this one. No, then column is equal to, yep, there it is. Okay, so column is equal to this one. Otherwise, if replacing is false, map insertion columns is equal to columns. Okay. Okay, that it was just some syntax that was confusing. I'm not too concerned about exactly what it's doing because that's kind of like a little bit of a rabbit hole, trying to understand exactly which row is being put into where and all of that. It's not quite important for understanding the conceptual stuff. I just saw some syntax that I wasn't sure about, and I wanted to go and investigate it. Like the ternary operator is one that I just never use in C, and I know that a lot of programmers really love using it, but I never I always just do the if else. Okay. Is there a command? So SQLite this error execute non-query. What we're getting. Okay, let me look for the other. Here we go. So here is the execute non-query. It is part of SQLite command. So connection.trace. I believe this question mark is different than the yeah, because this is not a ternary operator. So does this make it non-nullable? I forget what this means. Okay. Or sorry, I think it means that it is nullable. Okay. So con.trace, this likely is a Boolean property. Okay. It acts as a flag. It's true, then log whatever happens. Okay. Dot evoke, probably a delegation like action string or an event handler. Okay. Question mark dot operator is the null conditional operator. If con.tracer, this, is null, nothing happens. If it's not null, then this happens. Oh, interesting. Okay. 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 Nice. So, there we go. Got that. And then executing plus this. But this is an object itself. Which concatenates a string. This toString is called. Okay. Okay. So now what do we're going to continue this, right? SQLite 3 result.ok. This is result, okay. Prepare, step, finalize. So right now I don't want to get too much into kind of exactly what's happening under the hood of how the connection between the code and the C# or the database actually works. I'm mainly trying to understand, like, okay, well, at the beginning of the video, I didn't understand how we were actually filling out these commands and then sending it to be processed. But now I'm starting to understand it a little bit more. So this is our hello world again. This is the documentation. This is the hello world. Okay, so in this one, we build up the commands and then we do this just execute and it connects to the database and does this command. That's all we need to know. And then console dot, this is just print name, and then we do, okay, that's whatever. End region. I don't know what regions are. Okay, so let me go and check this out. What are the hashtags doing? Okay. All right. So those region and end region lines aren't SQL or C#. They're compiler directives used in C# and other .NET languages to organize code. They mark a collapsible section of code in your IDE. Everything between those two can be folded, expanded in the editor. They don't affect how the code runs. They're purely for readability and organization. Okay. Group related code. Okay. Okay, fine. It's kind of a nothing burger, I think. Command text, so select, and then last row ID. I don't understand what's going on here. What is long? So we're casting a long dot execute scalar with an exclamation mark at the end. Okay. All right, so come here. This sets SQL command text to run a special SQLite function. Okay, what's that function? So this sets SQL. Oh, what does it do? Returns the row ID or the primary key of the most recent row. So that's this right here. Okay, so I mean I kind of understand what I did, but I don't understand the syntax. Executes the SQL command and returns the first column of the row. Okay. Cast it to a long, that's fine. Null forgiving operator. This tells the compiler, I know this won't be null. Okay, without it, the compiler might warn that it could return null. So it's a way of getting around warnings. Okay. So like, for example, what I think an example of this would be is if we run this, let's say that we write the lines command text equals select last insert row ID, and then we do new var ID equals long command execute scalar, and then we don't have this exclamation mark. Well, new ID could be, in that situation that I just described, it would be null because we have not inserted anything into our table. And therefore, we would get back nothing. But we can add this exclamation mark if instead of just doing these two commands, I have just done a command to insert. So I know that there's going to be at least something in there. Or if I do a check before and I say like the length of my database or something like, or the length of my table or something like that. Yeah, so see, they do the command here and then they run this. And we know that it's not going to be null. Okay. So IEnumerable T. I remember like going into this and I forgot I think the T means of generic type. And I is an interface. So I'm going to look at that as well. I forgot about how these work. Okay, so IEnumerable is an interface. Yep. that represents a sequence of elements you can iterate over. Okay, so it is an interface, so it is a definition of methods. Or of items within a class, but it's not a class itself. It's just saying, hey, this is the definition. So if I have anything of enumerable, that means that I can assume that I have access to those methods. Now, how it's actually implemented is going to be determined by the class, the object itself. And it can be of different types of classes. But I know that each class is going to have those same methods to it. Okay, yeah. Okay, the T is a generic type parameter. It can hold any type. So it could be an int. Okay, so I'm iterating over something. I know that it is going to have the methods of iterable, but it could have other methods, right? So int is going to have whatever, I don't know which methods it would have, but like string might have two upper or two lower, but int is not going to have two upper or two lower, but both of them are going to have a method maybe called next, I don't know, because it's iterable, and both are iterable, both have all of the methods within the iterable enumerable. Okay. So enumerable string names is a new list of string, okay, here, and then for name in, yeah, okay. All right. Well, there was one more thing that I remember seeing at the start of this video, or maybe it was even at the end of the last video. I remember seeing something and I'm like, that could be a video, or that could be an investigation all unto itself. It was something with Java. Partials. Java, no partials. Putting classes or interfaces is the same. Okay. No. It's fine. Partial like classes. It was not Python. It was, oh, right. Here we go. Inner and outer. So I want to understand Java inner and outer classes. Can you tell me more? Okay. All right, let's go and investigate. So, let's see. Outer classes. An outer class is just a normal class defined at the top level of a .java file. So, public class outer here. Okay. Nothing special, it's just the container for everything. Inner classes. An inner class is a class defined inside. Oh, it's just a nested. It's just a nested class. So member inner classes define inside and outer, behaves like a member. Okay, never mind. That's actually a lot. That's very anticlimactic. Okay, it's just a member variable, but that member variable is an object, I think. That's why they do outer dot accessing this member variable, right? Is equal to outer new inner. Okay. Okay, well, there we go. So we can instantiate this class and have it be or have it be a member variable. So outer dot inner. So accessing the outers accessing the outer's member variable, which is called inner, okay? And we're going to say inner here is equal to outer here, here, okay? Dot new, and then inner. Okay, so, I mean, the syntax is, I'm not completely familiar or comfortable right now with the syntax, like dot new, but I kind of understand the general, like, idea of what's happening here. So static nested class declared static does not have access to outer classes instance variables directly. Okay, static class nested here. Local inner class defined inside of a method, only visible within that method. So class okay. How is this one defined as local, but the other one is not? Class inner. Why is this one? Anonymous inner classes. Okay, there. Maybe it is a little bit more than I was thinking. Anonymous inner classes. I know about anonymous functions. So declared and instantiated at the same time, often used for callbacks or interfaces. Okay. Public static void main. Yeah, okay. Wait, hold on. Let me. Getting my brain back. We're not doing C# right now. We're doing Java. Okay. They're very similar languages, but I just remembered. Hold up. Public static void main. Here we go. We're doing Java. This is not C#. Okay. Runnable R, new runnable, override, new thread. Okay, so here is our function. And then we can just do runnable R is equal to new runnable. And then we give this, so here's the anonymous, I think. New thread, and then just run that thread here. Okay. Dot start. Okay. This one was the local inner. Static class. So declare with static does not have access to outer classes instance variables. Okay. Okay. Summary. Outer class, normal top level class. Inner class defines inside outer classes can be member, static, local, or anonymous. Okay. But I don't see much difference in the declaration between... I mean, this is inside of like a function. That's the only difference I see. Defined inside of a method. Okay, well, there we go. So if it's defined inside of a method, it's only visible within that method. Okay, there we go. Anonymous inner classes. Okay. Start. And start, I think, auto looks for something called run and then does that. Okay. So I think we kind of understand a little bit better how C Sharp is working with the SQLite database and how we're able to build those commands and actually execute the SQL operations. And so I'm pretty satisfied with the location that we've gotten to in this video. This and the last video that I did. I still have a lot more topics on my note card that I am uh, wanting to explore. So a lot of different engineering concepts that I don't quite understand. So like I need to get more into. I want to figure out like what are DLLs in C sharp. Like how do those work? How do you publish something? I want to learn more about like SD cards and formatting and partitioning them. I want to do. I need to get into a little bit of like some of the commands for Git, like for example, restore, reset, check out of an old hash, um, and then how to use. Oh, then the other one is like how do I use GitHub repos to actually be a library? So normally what I do is like npm install node package manager, right? Or with Python, you do the pip install or sudo apt install. And so that's how I go to like this manager and get the library that I want. And then the manager puts it in the correct location in my system to be able to perform those operations. But what about the case that I have a library or there's code written in on GitHub and it's a library, but it doesn't have that manager. How do you actually hook that up? So that's an investigation that I want to do as well. So, anyways, I'm going to be back pretty soon with another engineering investigation video. And so, if any of this is interesting, subscribe. I would love to have you along on the journey, and we will continue to move forward and improve ourselves as engineers. So, yeah, thank you for watching. My name is Timothy Lee Grant, and I'll see you guys in the next video.